Good morning, gang. Happy Sunday morning. Okay. Well, if you're like me, you're sick of this winter weather. I know for those of you guys that are way up north, you got a long way to go. Those of us that are down south, hey, you know, we're already going. Is it spring yet? Okay, spring comes a little earlier here. And of course, with spring, at least for me, probably for some of you too, you're really itching to get out and start your 2024 gardens. Now, this is where the fun time comes in. You are by now hopefully planned or in the midst of it. You've probably ordered your seeds or you're waiting for them to show up. And you're figuring out, okay, this is what I'm going to do to produce my own food this year. So yesterday, I was watching a video. It was an interview between Ben from Grow Veg and Hugh Richards. If you guys don't know either one of them on YouTube, they are some of the premier garden channels, or gardening channels. And the premise of the video was Hugh Richards weighing out last year how much he grew in his garden, weight-wise, okay? And it got me thinking. It's like, okay, so let's start putting this together. How self-sufficient are we actually at feeding ourselves? Okay, and I'm going to go into a little bit more than just gardening on this. So I started digging in and doing some research, and I mean, y'all know the fact, like I do, that the average person eats 1,996 pounds of food a year. Okay, each one of us eats 1 ton of food. That comes as a shock to a lot of people. So I looked up what a survival diet would be. Okay, not by calories, because that's been discussed forever, and most of us have no way of, okay, here's a potato. How many calories in this particular potato? We don't know. All right. You know, you can kind of guess. So it's how we plan our pantry. How much caloric intake can we get? But how much can you produce when there isn't a can that says 105 calories per serving and there's two servings in a can, right? You know, you're going out and you're picking it out of the garden, or you're catching it out of the lake, or you're trapping or hunting it out in the woods. Okay? So I went by something that we can all figure out for ourselves, and how much food we would need to eat to survive. It's different for people at different ages. Obviously, babies are going to need different amounts than teenagers, that are going to need different amounts than full-grown adults. Okay? But a accepted food intake per person on an annual basis is 3 to 5 pounds a day to survive. Okay? It'd be the SHTF diet. If you do the math on that, that's somewhere between roughly 1,000 and about 1,800 pounds of food. Okay? Now, somebody bigger like me, probably going to need more. Okay? Somebody who's, let's say 110-pound woman, probably going to need less. But figure this out. So if you go between 3 and 5. So just to make the math easy, let's just take the midpoint and say, okay, if we plan on 4 pounds of food for everybody in our family, our mag, whatever size group you have, okay, and then figure out how you're going to grow or harvest that. Now, 4 pounds of food, you're talking what, times 365, 1,500 pounds of food a year, okay, per person. So that means for me and Mrs. P, we need 3,000 pounds of food. And my theory has always been I'm going to add the 2 dogs together as one more person. Maybe let's say maybe not. Let's go a little bit less than that. They're not going to need that much food. So let's say between the two dogs, I need another 1,000 pounds of food. That means I need to raise or harvest 4,000 pounds of food a year. 2 tons of food. We look at our harvests in our gardens and go, wow, I got a lot. Until you realize, no, you didn't get squat. Okay. Think about what 4,000 pounds of food is. Well, let's see. I got a whole cow this year. That was 600 pounds. I'd have to get 6.5 cows. Let's see. If you go out and catch a 3-pound bass, let's not even say cleaning it. Okay. How many bass do you need to collect? A little more than 1,300 of them. Ever had a fishing trip where you caught 1,300 fish? Probably not. Okay. So you start looking at this and go, okay, what's really going to happen? How prepared am I food-wise? What am I growing? Well, like most of you, I do my vegetable gardens. I've got my fruit trees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my challenge to myself this year, I'm going to weigh everything in my harvest and see what my collective amount of food that I've got is. Okay. Granted, I'm still going to buy stuff at the grocery store or whatever this year and eat. I don't have cows or anything like that. It's not like I'm going to go vegetarian all of a sudden. Okay. But I'm going to weigh to see what I have. Now, let's talk about this. Because if I'm going to weigh all my vegetables, all right, that's great. But you can't just do it that way. So let's figure this. When you get green peppers, for example, you clean them. You take all the seeds out, right? When you have a potato, unless you're doing baked potatoes or something, if you're making mashed potatoes out of it, you peel the potato. Let's think about a corn cob. Okay, you eat the corn, you don't eat the cob. Or a peach or an apple, the core or the pit you throw away. So now you look at it and say, okay, let's say ballpark 10% of what I grow, I actually either recycle or throw away. So now that 4,000 pounds that I need is now 4,400 pounds. Okay. Because I'm not going to peel all my potatoes and then weigh them or something like that. So I figure I need 4,400 pounds of food to raise. Now, how do you get that? Well, if you get eggs, weigh the eggs, okay? If you butcher a chicken, weigh the chicken. If you get a deer, all right, process the deer, weigh the deer. But figure out what your weight that you need to have in food and really see how much you have the ability to survive on what you can raise yourself, how dependent you are on a grocery store. And then maybe that'll change up your plans. Because, sure, we've all stored food. We all have Mylar bags full of rice and flour and canned goods and mayonnaise and, everything like that in our pantries. Okay. Some have more than others. But the day you open can 1, the clock starts ticking. How are you going to replace it? And again, if you think about this and you go, okay, as a household, we need to have 4,000 pounds of food a year. And you go, okay, well, I produce 3,000 pounds of food a year. And that would be awesome if anybody did, because I know I'm not going to come anywhere close to that. Okay. You go, okay, I've got a shortfall of 1,000 pounds a year. And how soon do you realize going, oh crap, in 3 years, if I don't grow it, we don't eat. This is something that really needs to be looked at in our preps. We all get this, including me, everybody. We get this overinflated sense of security in regards to what we have stored. You look in your pantry and you go, holy crap, I've got 200 jars of food stored. And you think, how much space this is taking up or whatever. All right, well, think about that. 200 jars of food stored. You have 2 people, okay, in your household. You eat 1 meal a day. It's 100 days. It's a little more than 3 months. Then what? You go, I've got 2,000 jars of food stored. There's probably some people out there that do. Okay. That's 1,000 days worth of food. Okay. That's 3 years. Good. Okay. But none of us know how long any sort of SHTF event is going to last. And all these people that say, I'm going to go out and hunt, or I'm going to go out and fish and supplement my diet, yeah, that'll work for the first week or 2. Because when you have 330 million people out there with the same freaking idea, Bambi ain't going to last in a forest too long. Nemo's not going to be in the pond too long, because people are going to be getting anything and everything by whatever means possible they can. This is how you have to start looking at your sufficiency, your preparations, because nobody wants to believe it, and all of us hope it never happens. But what do you do when the store is gone? I love listening to the people that say, well, I'll trade for a can of beans. Do you know, once you figure this out, do you know what the value of that can of beans is to you now? I'll trade a couple of bullets for a can of beans. Right, sure. Okay. Well, all of a sudden you go through what you produce and what you have, and you go, I've got 2 years worth of food, and then I have nothing. Then I have to wait 6 months till my harvest. That can of beans is worth a whole lot more than those couple of bullets all of a sudden. We all know most of the world has complete blinders on, that they think that the grocery store is always going to be there. Right. Okay. Come on. Bill Gates is trying to shut down farms. AOC doesn't want ranchers anymore. Okay. Sorry, food doesn't come from the grocery store. Food comes from the people that work the fields and raise the livestock. Okay. When they're no longer able to do it because the powers that be tell them that they can't raise cattle anymore, can't grow food anymore, when fuel costs are so ridiculously expensive that they can't get it shipped to market, when everybody's got to be doing electric vehicles and it's 6 degrees outside and nothing's running, okay, and it can't get shipped to market, when there is no electricity to process those foods or to refrigerate those foods or to can those foods, and obviously in a processing plant, those don't go to market. This is what we need to look at, how we are on our own for this. And you need to figure out what you can raise on your own. You need to raise, we all like raising the fun stuff. I mean, tomatoes are the number one thing that the home gardener plants. And I love tomatoes, don't get me wrong. Okay. And I plant tomatoes, but they are not the calorie dense crops that we need to be planting. Okay. I mean, good things to add to your garden. Certainly potatoes, sweet potatoes, beets, turnips, rutabagas, Jerusalem artichokes, things like that, which all turn out to be a lot of root vegetables. Why? Because they're calorie dense. They're heavy. Okay. You can eat a potato and walk away from the table feeling at least somewhat satisfied. You're probably not going to walk away from the table eating a tomato and feeling satisfied, or you're sure as hell going to be hungry in a half an hour. Okay. But you need to have a variety too, because you can't just live on potatoes. Not healthy, at least. Not that you're going to last long that way. Okay. You still need to have those tomatoes. You still need to have those peppers, because not only do you need the carbohydrates, you need the vitamin C, you need the vitamin A, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You need to have beans because you need the proteins. These are the things. When you're planning your gardens, when you're planting your hunting or your fishing trip this year, have a goal in mind for what you want to get to. Make it realistic, okay? Don't give me, I'm not coming home from fishing, honey, until I get 1,300 fish, okay? Instead of going fishing, go to divorce court, okay? Because you're never going to see your wife again. But figure out what you can do, how you can get the food that you need, and use the little time that we have now to develop the skills, whether it's learning how to fish, whether it's learning how to hunt, whether it's learning how to trap, whether it's learning how to garden, whether it's learning animal husbandry, whatever. Learn those skills, because nobody else is going to give you an egg when you're hungry just because they feel bad for you. Pinball out.